This is a test. This station is conducting a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is only a test.
James McMahon Music Podcast. James McMahon Music Podcast. James McMahon Music Podcast. James McMahon Music Podcast. He speaks to the geeks and the musical freaks, but sometimes popular but mostly a freak because he's James McMahon Music Podcast. James McMahon Music Podcast.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Right, so I'm going to be honest from the off. I wasn't aware of your band until recently. Jazz, your PR put you on my radar. So I've spent the day going into your back catalogue and the new record. So, but I guess the reason why I wanted to speak to you, the reason why I said yes, I'll make time to do this episode is because I love New Zealand. I'm nuts on New Zealand. I used to go out with a girl from Wellington. And for a period of time, I used to pretend to be from New Zealand. I was like a Kiwi file, right? I was like,
yeah, you're an honorary Kiwi, honorary Kiwi. There we go. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, something like that. And actually, my parents-in-law went on a trip to New Zealand a couple of years ago, and I said to them, "You must bring me back some chocolate fish." And
Chocolate fish.
Yes. Yeah. And they brought me back a big box of chocolate fish. So yeah, I still maintain a lot of affection for the place.
Awesome, bro.
So yeah, if any New Zealand bands are listening to this, I will listen to you, and I will largely speak to you on account of wanting that nationality. How many times when you speak to journalists outside of New Zealand do they want to talk to you about Lord of the Rings?
Well, when I travelled back in the day, I went to the UK. I actually lived down in Cornwall for a while.
All right.
And that was in 2012. And the only two things that people could connect, well, there's probably three, but it was like Lord of the Rings. They're like, "Oh, you're from New Zealand?" I'm like, yeah. "Oh, Lord of the Rings, South Island." And then, that's all they wanted to talk about. That's all they kind of cared about, really. And then the band called Fat Freddy's Drop, which massive in the in that side of the world, Europe, UK. So yeah, it was like it was the starting topic of any conversation with the foreigner on that side of the world was like either Lord of the Rings, South Island, or Fat Freddy's Drop. So
I mean, yeah. You say that though, but I mean, New Zealand does have such a rich musical heritage. I mean, it's a million miles away from what you do, but I'm a huge fan of like the 80s output of Flying Nun Records, which is Dunedin.
yeah.
And I actually, because I went over to New Zealand for a couple of weeks for a piece that I did when I was at the NME, and I went to the New Zealand Music Awards. And whilst there was hardly any music that I knew, like there was very few artists that were performing or winning awards that I knew who they were. I think Flight the Conchords did a sort of a video address and stuff, but
yeah.
There was hardly anyone that I knew, but I came away from it being quite jealous, really, of like the setup of the New Zealand music industry. It just felt it felt like much more of a community than what I've experienced in the UK. And given that the UK is, what the UK is, that you would argue the music industry is bigger. I was quite envious of that sort of small. Everyone kind of knows each other, and no one really feels like they're trying to fuck each other over. It feels like they're trying to grow together. Is that just the sort of romance of an outsider, or is that what it's like?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely true. In our part of the scene, we coming from more the roots reggae part, scene. It's definitely a thriving. Yeah, definitely thriving, and everyone is supportive. Like back in the day when bands like. You might know some of these bands, you might not, but Cora, Catch a Fire, Shapeshifter, even earlier than that, Fat Freddy's Drop from Wellington. This is like late 90s, early 2000s when all these bands were starting to take off, and it became the platform for a lot of the bands that you see today, like L.A.B and 660 and all these bands that are, playing roots reggae music in their style. You know, it's in their kind of one of their styles and their kind of thing. It's yeah, I would say these bands have created a platform for it, and are definitely very supportive still to this day of any new stuff coming through that has that flavor. So yeah, you're right.
I mean, you talk about reggae, and obviously that is core to what you do. But when I was listening to the new record back to back with the preceding ones, I thought there was like a real Motown thing going on. Was that deliberate?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we definitely take a leaf out of the American style of music. Yeah, Motown, Stevie Wonder, Bill Withers, Donny Hathaway, all that kind of stuff. We all grew up listening to that stuff as well. So it's definitely a mix for sure. You know, as much as there's roots reggae going on, there's also, I mean, songs like "In the Air" that our biggest track. It's more in that kind of nostalgic '70s soul soft rock feel, I suppose. I don't know. It's hard to kind of put your finger on it, but yeah, we listen to everything, man. And it's the kind of common theme is music from the '70s seems to be the biggest influence on L.A.B, whether it be Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, or Bill Withers, Donny Hathaway. Like it's quite a mix. And you kind of delve into our back catalogue and listen to some of the rock stuff, you'll hear those kind of heavy influences kind of pop in, and we definitely use those elements when we play live as well. Making sure we bring a heavy set to the festivals and stuff, and definitely play with a rock stuff like that, which is kind of cool.
Why is there this? Well, I guess like what was your route to roots reggae? Like, because like you're saying, it does feel like that is a sound that is prevalent with a. It does feel like there's a scene around that genre in New Zealand. Like, why is that?
I'd say that, yeah, I mean, roots reggae has been big in this country since Bob Marley. Like his music resonated with this country, and it still to this day is and will forever be, a massive part of our culture.
Why do you think that is, though? Did he ever make it there?
Yes, he did. He did make it here, and it was quite a prolific performance. He played at a place called Western Springs in Auckland, and it was huge. A local band called the Herbs, I believe, opened for them, who are a really old school reggae band from New Zealand. And yeah, so I would say that moment was a very poignant moment, kind of a tipping point, you could probably say, in that music. It's always resonated with the indigenous people of New Zealand, the Māori people, the message and the music, the love, the oppression, there's so much, so much in there that people can relate to, not just Māori people, but I think all of us as Kiwis, his message of love and all that kind of stuff as well, so he's massive in this country, and to the point where there's festivals all around New Zealand that Aotearoa that are all reggae based. 20,000 people turn up to them. It's just huge.
Really interesting.
And we are an island. At the end of the day, we are an island.
So. What's the legal status of marijuana in New Zealand?
Illegal, but they did a referendum, I don't know, last year, and they got to like 47% of people were like, just legalize it. Of course, there was 3% that stuffed it up for everybody.
Yeah. How's New Zealand lean politically now? When I was really obsessed with New Zealand, and I was almost thinking I might end up there at some point, it was, it felt very liberal, but it's a little bit more of an inch towards the right in recent years and towards the conservatism, right?
Yeah, you probably asked the wrong person, bro, for that. But it's definitely getting a little interesting here. I'll just say that.
That's an enigmatic answer.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, all right, okay, no worries. In terms of you obviously just in terms of the records you've sold and the platinum status of them, you're a big band in New Zealand. What are the challenges to transcending that and speaking to the rest of the world?
What are the challenges? And
Well, I guess the easiest answer is geography. That you're an island and you some distance from a lot of other English speaking countries. But what's it is that thing. I spoke to the Beths, the band the Beths from Auckland.
yes,
And
yeah,
we had a similar conversation, and they were saying, well, it's just it's just so expensive to get off New Zealand and go out on tour. What almost like, so I guess what I'm asking is what are your ambitions in terms of quote unquote conquering the rest of the world, or just kind of spreading what you do beyond New Zealand?
Yeah, we've definitely in the last 12 months we've had the opportunity to get overseas, kind of for the first time. I would say we've done a lot in Australia, which is a little bit in the early stages of L.A.B. We were going to Australia a lot, and there's a lot of Kiwis, a lot of New Zealanders living in Australia. So outside of that kind of bubble, we wanted to have a crack at the States and Europe and the UK. So last year we had the opportunity to get to those places, and it was positive, man. It was really a really beautiful experience playing in Amsterdam at the Paradiso, to a sold out crowd that was predominantly European. Was up, just mind blown knowing that these people knew our songs and had been listening to us for the last 7 years. It's like, it was pretty special. So, and then when we played in London, it was kind of the opposite. It was more Kiwis homesick,
Right.
couldn't wait to hear a New Zealand band. So
there is a lot of them though. There is a lot,
especially in certain parts of London. There's a lot of Kiwis and Aussies,
and they all seem to be really into outdoor sports as well. I feel like if you see anyone like walking around London and they've got like a sort of a what's that company, like the North Face, if they're wearing any of that kind of gear, I would say it's a sort of like a 1 in 3 chance that they're from New Zealand.
Yeah, 1 in 3 chance they like to go hiking.
Yeah, more if the rugby's on.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I'd say as a nation, we're a fairly active nation. Everyone loves to get out and do things.
Yeah. What's I mean, since you got together, you've been really rattling out records. 1 a year. This one took 2, right? What was that about? Did you just want to lie in a few days?
Yeah, we needed a few sleep-ins. It was getting a bit crazy. No, basically it was. Yeah, I mean, you're basically on the money. It was the band needed to kind of pull back a bit and reassess a few things and come in with a fresh perspective. And to do that, you need time and you need to be away. I would say away from the saddle a little bit. We were pushing pretty hard there at one stage. It was getting full on, and I think that's this album is it feels super fresh, and it feels real lively, kind of like the first couple of albums that we released back in 2017, 2018. You could feel that fire in the music, and I wouldn't say we lost that. We definitely haven't lost it, but it's, like I said, we just needed that space to kind of be creative, find that fuel to be creative again. And we've brought that to this album big time. I think it's a really strong body of work, and super proud of it. Super proud of this next release.
So, do you think you were just overdoing it? Because it's, I'm a big fan of creative people who, really do almost kind of commit to their creativity in an almost industrial sense. That they're like, what, we're going to make things. What's the point in hanging around? I'm a big fan of that. But that's definitely like I don't feel like people do that by accident. I feel like it's a mindset.
Oh, for sure. It's 100% a mindset. Yeah. It's we made that decision from day one that we wanted to do. We wrote it on the back of a pizza box, actually, of all things. And we actually, we quite often, when we feel like we're getting a little bit like, oh, we need to get some more direction, we need to get that pizza, and we go back to Pizza Hut and sort it out. We literally wrote our goals on the back of this box, and it was like, It was before a festival. We were like the first band on. This is way back in the early days of L.A.B, and it was like, we want to write 3 albums in 3 years. We want to each buy a house, through making money through music, blah, blah, all these kind of things, like real ambitious goals. And then you fast forward 7 years, and we've achieved that and some. So it's it worked. We put it out to the universe, and we made sure we stayed accountable when we did it.
Yeah, it's funny that it's funny that you keep talking about the early days, and I mean, like you say, it was 7 years ago. I mean, that's nothing really, like, to cram all of this in that amount of time.
No, exactly. Yeah, we've definitely achieved a lot, I would say, but yeah, it's definitely mindset. Brad, our drummer, who's also a producer, songwriter, lead songwriter, and producer, his mindset is incredibly inspiring, and it's something that is a huge driving force behind L.A.B. Somebody like him who aims for the moon and lands on the stars, kind of thing, and it just leaves can't leave a trail of destruction behind it, but we're all catching it, and you know what I mean. Like, he's just got that creative mind. Like, once he's on the in the muse or whatever, in the vortex, you just got to follow, and 90% of the time it works.
How's it work with two of the band? Because Cora are active, right?
Mm-hmm.
How's it? I mean, so we're really talking about how much you crammed in, but to have another act of significance that have been coexisting with this band. Like, how does that work? Is there ever schedule clashes or?
Yes, there's only one of the brothers, or one of the members of L.A.B, who was a Cora brother, Stu Cora, who's actually in Cora. So
okay,
yeah, that's Stu. He's been the busiest man this summer. He's played, we've done 2 L.A.B shows this summer, releasing music as well. The songs coming out, finishing the album, and all this kind of stuff. All the while, he's been touring with Cora and staying incredibly busy with the boys. So, yeah, it's definitely a bit of a juggle, but we make it work.
So in terms of the plan going forward, so the record's out. Well, it's soon, isn't it? I know it's February. Can you remember the date?
February the 23rd. Yeah.
Good work. I should have known that. What's the chances that you're going to get to the UK?
Not this year, but we're already in talks of what's happening in 2025. This year we're focusing on America, which is going really well. We're actually locking in some stuff at the moment, so we'll be bouncing backwards and forwards to the west coast of the States, up into Oregon and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
I even believe we're playing in Salt Lake City. So we're doing some cool things in regards to the States, and that was, that's going off what we did last year in America and how well that went, which is so great to see fruits coming from the touring, because you need to be on the ground to make things work as a band. There's only so much radio and social media can do, so it's been really nice to see people wanting us to come back. So and the same for the UK. We've got plans. We've got big plans for the UK. The next time we come back, we're highly likely to be playing in Germany and France, and as well as going back to the Netherlands and the UK.
Oh, fantastic! Well, if you do get to the UK, I am putting in a request for a box of chocolate fish. So if you could maybe leave that merch under my name, then
sure,
I'll be happy.
Yeah, we'll have a T-shirt and a box of, maybe even 2 boxes, if you're lucky.
Oh God, I knew I wouldn't regret this conversation, Joel. Listen, it's been so nice to speak to you, and good luck with the new record. And like I say, I'll keep my eye out when you get to the UK.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, dude. Take care of yourself.